Baby Yoda, Mandalorian.
Over the years, we've gotten a lot of stories about the scum and villainy of the Star Wars universe. The bounty hunters, the smugglers, the scoundrels. So what makes this one so special? Well, for one, it's live action. With Disney at the helm, we are finally able to get a high-budget Star Wars live-action series, and it looks fantastic. There's a great mix of CGI and practical effects that really makes this world come to life. The locales, the costumes, the creatures, all look movie quality.
They don't try and go too outlandish with CGI in terms of like the creatures and stuff. It works pretty well.
In terms of the atmosphere and tone, it's really going for that spaghetti western, A New Hope, Mos Eisley Cantina kind of look. Sure, you get a lot of familiar creatures and aliens from the movies and Rebels and Clone Wars. That doesn't necessarily mean that there's a lot of fan service. They're really doing their own thing here. The first 3 episodes are captivating, and it really does a good job in pulling you into this corner of the galaxy. The Empire is in disarray after the events of Return of the Jedi, and there's just this sense of chaos and unrest. But I'll be honest, I did think there was a drop in quality, and the series doesn't really live up to how great those first 3 episodes were.
Yeah, it's definitely a drop, but whenever there was action in those episodes, it was still pretty good. There is a difference between like the first few episodes and then the like middle episodes.
Every episode after those first 3 feel like one-off adventures, and it doesn't involve the main overarching narrative. It feels like a bounty hunter taking on side missions and jobs, which I don't mind.
There was nothing essentially wrong with that, just not much happened. It didn't really add to anything.
Considering it's an 8-episode series, I would have preferred if some of the episodes felt a little less like filler. We get a lot of cliche scenarios, we get a lot of generic locations, but I do think the series redeems itself by the end. It all comes together in the final 2 episodes, and it was a great way to end the series and get you excited for the second season. My main issue is with how some of the dialogue is handled. It makes some of the characters feel like they're from Earth instead of the Star Wars galaxy.
You think that's a good idea, do you?
At times, it can feel like a parody of Star Wars as opposed to Star Wars itself. You know, it's trying to use these elements, but it's playing them up.
There are points where they do make references to the movies, and it can be pretty jarring sometimes.
Maybe he's a Gungan. Is that why you so don't want to show your face?
Jarring, am I right? We do get a lot of side characters, and they are likable to an extent, but I do think that the way they're written and the way they're acted doesn't make them mesh well with the main Star Wars story they're trying to tell. We do get a lot of cool guest stars, but they feel wasted sometimes, and it's a shame because I feel like some of these actors can bring something fresh into the Star Wars universe. Those are my issues with some of the side characters, but let's focus on who we're spending the most time with, the Mandalorian.
At the start, he's pretty mysterious, and that's a pretty typical Mandalorian attitude. He has some development.
Look, the Mandalorian is not an amazing character. He's that stoic, silent, badass Western archetype that doesn't show a lot of emotion in his voice and on account of him never taking off his helmet, but he is someone to root for.
It's also great how the Mandalorian isn't an overpowered character. More often than not, we see him on the losing side. We get to see a lot of him getting his ass kicked. The action scenes seem pretty gritty and raw. He never seems like an unstoppable killing machine.
He's not that typical cold-blooded killer that a lot of these bounty hunter characters are, and it's refreshing to see a noble bounty hunter with a moral code that makes him more sympathetic. Pedro Pascal, he's barely in the armor, but his voice work is serviceable. Gina Carano as Cara Dune and Carl Weathers as Greef Karga are great supporting characters, and so is Taika Waititi as IG-11. Let's talk about the biggest thing that's making a huge buzz on the internet that's coming from The Mandalorian, and that is Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda is a game changer, and that's another big risk that the series is taking.
George Lucas was extremely secretive about the backstory and history of Yoda's species, so seeing a new member of the species is a massive deal. It will be interesting to see how it plays out in the future.
Baby Yoda is a great character in his own right.
From a scale of cuteness, from aw to daw, I give Baby Yoda, oh little baby, oh they're so cute, oh baby, look at the baby, oh my god, they're so cute.
His cutesy nature kind of clashes with the dark western aesthetic that they're going for, but I think that adds character to the series. This series by nature would be dealing a lot with Mandalorian culture and customs.
It's really cool that we get to see other Mandalorians with different armor designs.
And I love that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are involved in this series. They're two people who have worked with Mandalorian lore before. They're extremely well versed in Star Wars storytelling. Overall, I really enjoyed the series, and I'm excited to see what they do next for season 2.
I mean, some of the episodes were like average. Like, obviously, we'll have to see, but I do think it's better than the first seasons of Rebels and the Clone Wars. I feel like it's a different tone to those shows, but it definitely has its similarities. While there are a lot of familiar elements, it still feels fresh. Some of the newer aspects might not work too much, but it's always great to see the franchise take some risks.
I like seeing this era of Star Wars being explored, the post-Return of the Jedi, pre-Force Awakens era. It's refreshing to see another Star Wars story that doesn't deal with Jedi and Sith. We get to see the dirty, gritty aspects of the scum and villainy. Some of these action scenes are spectacular, and I am extremely excited to see more. They've managed to create a live-action Star Wars show that matches the quality of what we see on the big screen, and sometimes even exceeds it.
We're done. We're out of here. Well, that was our review of The Mandalorian Season 1.
And if you love this video and want to see more, please consider subscribing. You can check out another Star Wars video I did. This is me ranking the Star Wars teaser trailers from worst to best. I have a lot more Star Wars videos planned for the future, so until then, bye bye.